You are standing 4 inches from another person's face. Eyes closed, lips puckered. This is apparently the most romantic thing a human being can do. Now actually think about what is happening here. You moved your face toward another face until they touched. And you decided, this feels wonderful. Nobody taught you how to kiss. You just knew. There was no lesson, no diagram, no practice test. One day, it simply felt like the obvious thing to do. Here's the part nobody mentions. When you press your lips to someone's, you exchange up to 80 million bacteria in a single kiss. Stay with me. 80 million tiny organisms crossing from one mouth into another. And your brain reads all of that as the height of romance. Scientists call what we do osculation, from the Latin for little mouth. It sounds significantly less romantic that way. But here is the real mystery. No single culture invented kissing and taught it to everyone else. It appears in places that never met. And the reason your species does this is genuinely stranger than anyone tells you. By the end of this, it will change how you see the whole thing. Stay with me. You probably assume kissing is just human, universal instinct. It is not. In 2015, researchers studied 168 cultures around the world. They were checking one simple question: does everyone actually kiss romantically? The answer was no, not even close. Romantic kissing showed up in fewer than half of them. 46% to be exact. In the rest, pressing your mouth to a partner's mouth simply wasn't done. In some places, it was worse than not done. It was disgusting. Centuries ago, European explorers tried to kiss people who had never seen it before. Several of those people were horrified. One account described it as eating each other's saliva and dirt. Which, to be fair, is not a wrong description. The Mangaya of the Pacific only learned romantic kissing from outsiders. Before that, the whole idea struck them as unpleasant. So kissing is not some instinct written into all of us. It's more like a habit some of us picked up. Which raises a far better question. If it isn't universal, why did anyone start at all? Why would pressing 2 faces together ever feel good? There had to be a first kiss, somewhere, for some reason. And that reason was almost certainly not romance. To find it, you have to stop thinking about love and start thinking about information. Because a kiss is one of the most data-rich things 2 humans can do. In a single second, your face runs dozens of tests on another person. You read their smell, their taste, their warmth, their health. You just don't experience it as testing. You experience it as wow. That wow is doing a job, a very old, very specific job. And to understand it, we have to go back to a mouth that wasn't kissing at all. Picture your face as a laboratory that happens to be attached to the rest of your head. In the 4 inches right before a kiss, that laboratory quietly powers on. Your nose, your lips, your tongue. 3 instruments, all aimed at the same target. And the target is not romance. The target is information. Every kiss runs a chemistry test on another entire human being. You never see the results. You just get a feeling, a soft yes or a very fast no. Start with your nose. In a kiss, it sits about an inch from someone's skin. That is not an accident of geometry. That is the front row seat. Your nose is sampling their scent at point-blank range. Humans give off a personal chemical signature through skin and breath, made partly by the apocrine glands. It is deeply unglamorous. It is basically your own body odor, concentrated. And your brain reads that scent like a barcode. Scientists still argue about whether humans have true pheromones the way animals do. But something in that scent is clearly informative, because you react to it before you can explain why. Some faces you want to move closer to. Some you back away from. The nose voted first. Then the lips make contact, and a second instrument switches on, taste. You are now sampling their saliva. Try not to think about that part too hard. Saliva is not just water. It is a chemical broadcast. Male saliva, for example, carries measurable testosterone. One theory says a longer, wetter kiss is partly a delivery system. The man's saliva transfers testosterone, which over time may nudge the woman's arousal and receptivity. It sounds like a conspiracy. It is just biochemistry running without a permission slip. So, a sloppy kiss is not bad manners. It might be an ancient chemical strategy you never agreed to. But scent and testosterone are only the warm-up. The real test is invisible, and it is about your immune system. Your body defends itself using a set of genes called the MHC, the major histocompatibility complex. These genes decide which invaders your immune system can recognize and fight off. Here is the strange part. The more different someone's MHC is from yours, the better they tend to smell to you. Different immune genes mean a child with a broader defense, a stronger immune toolkit. In 1995, a scientist named Klaus Wedekind ran what is now famous as the sweaty t-shirt study. Men wore the same shirt for 2 nights. Women then smelled the shirts and rated them. The women preferred the smell of men whose MHC genes were the most unlike their own. They were not sniffing for a personality, they were sniffing for immune compatibility. And a kiss puts your nose and mouth exactly where that signal is strongest. So when someone just smells right to you, that is not poetry. That is your immune system approving of theirs. This makes a kiss less a declaration of love and more a genetic background check. You lean in for romance. Your biology is quietly running a compatibility scan. Which brings us straight back to that number from the beginning. 80 million bacteria per kiss. That sounds like a health hazard. It is actually closer to a vaccination. Your mouth hosts a whole living ecosystem of microbes called the oral microbiome. In a 10-second kiss, you swap a piece of your ecosystem for a piece of theirs. A 2014 Dutch study actually measured this exchange with a stopwatch. Couples who kissed more often shared more similar mouth bacteria. And that swap may quietly train your immune system on their microbes. You are not just kissing a person, you are introducing your body to their bacteria on purpose. A small, deliberate exposure, so your defenses meet the new microbes gently instead of by surprise. Romantic? Not especially. Useful? Extremely. So, add it all up. Scent, testosterone, immune genes, and bacteria. One kiss samples all 4 at once in about 10 seconds. It is the most efficient mate quality test your body will ever run. You experience it as attraction. Your biology experiences it as a lab result. And every wow or every silent no is that result, delivered straight to your feelings. But none of this explains where the behavior actually came from. Because your body did not invent kissing to run these tests. It borrowed a far older mouth-to-mouth habit, one that had nothing to do with love. Picture a mother, 40,000 years ago. No blender, no baby food, and an infant with no teeth. Her baby cannot chew. A chunk of solid food would choke it, and milk will not last forever. So she does the only thing available. She chews the food soft herself, then pushes it mouth-to-mouth into her child. Anthropologists have a clinical, deeply unromantic name for this. They call it pre-mastication, literally, pre-chewing. Mothers on every continent did this for most of human history, long before spoons were ever invented. Now watch the shape of that gesture closely, because you have absolutely seen it before. Lips meeting lips, a small pause, a transfer. That is a kiss. Or at least, that is where one leading theory says, the kiss quietly began. The idea is simple, and a little insulting to Valentine's Day. Kiss feeding came first, and the affection got bolted on afterwards. A baby learns, before it can even speak, that this one gesture means safety, food, and love all at the same time. Lips on lips equals someone is keeping me alive. That equation gets wired into the brain absurdly early. And we are not the only species doing it. Plenty of birds pre-masticate too, parent to chick, beak straight into beak. In several human languages, the words for kissing and for smelling or tasting still overlap. The mouth remembers what it was for. But feeding is only half of the story. The other half is not about eating at all. It is about staying together. For our closest relatives, staying together runs through the fingers. It runs through grooming. Grooming is not really about hygiene. It is the social glue that holds an entire primate group together. A chimpanzee can spend up to a fifth of its waking day grooming others. That is a staggering amount of unpaid overtime. That time is not free. It is a currency, attention spent purely to say, I am with you. And here is the chemistry. Grooming releases oxytocin, the exact bonding hormone a kiss will later flood you with. So the machinery for bonding was already built and running long before anyone thought to make it romantic. And some primates take the bonding further, not fingers to fur, mouth to mouth. Bonobos, who share almost 99% of your DNA, genuinely kiss. They kiss to make up after a fight, to calm each other down, to reconnect, sometimes, embarrassingly, with tongue. The primatologist Franz de Waal watched chimps kiss and hug right after a brawl. He called it reconciliation, not romance. For them, a kiss is a peace treaty, not a love letter. Zoom all the way out, and mouth contact bonding turns out to be everywhere in the animal kingdom. Prairie voles, famously loyal enough to mate for life, press their little faces together to bond. Puffins clack and rub their beaks together in a ritual greeting that biologists actually call billing. Elephants greet a close friend by slipping the tip of a trunk gently into each other's mouth. Which, when you think about it, makes the human kiss look positively restrained. And then there is the dog that licks your face. That one is kiss feeding again, wearing a disguise. Wolf pups lick the corners of an adult's mouth to beg it to cough up softened food. The sloppy face lick you get from a dog is a leftover of that ancient begging for dinner gesture. So the same pattern keeps repeating across wildly different species. Mouths meet, and food, or peace, or comfort gets exchanged. Almost nowhere in nature is a mouth-to-mouth gesture about romance first. It is about survival first. Which quietly tells you something a little uncomfortable about your own kiss. The romance is just the newest coat of paint on a very, very old machine. So how does a feeding and peacemaking gesture end up being the thing you do, nervously, on a first date? The answer is that evolution is a hoarder. It almost never builds a brand new tool. It repurposes an old one lying around. And a gesture that already meant, trust me, I will not hurt you, was sitting right there, fully assembled. And trust is the exact thing two people need to establish before they consider mating. So the old bonding kiss got quietly promoted from the survival department to the romance department. Remember the survey from the start. Romantic kissing shows up in fewer than half of human cultures. The feeding and comfort version is nearly universal. The romantic version is just the local remix. And wherever romantic kissing did catch on, it landed on top of machinery already built for bonding. The oxytocin was already there. The hypersensitive lips were already there. The trust signal was already there. Romance did not invent the kiss. It hijacked one. A 2023 study even found written records of romantic kissing in ancient Mesopotamia, 4,500 years ago. Which sounds ancient, until you remember it is far younger than the feeding gesture it grew out of. The mouth-to-mouth habit is hundreds of thousands of years old. The romance layered on top is a few thousand at most. You inherited the hardware. Your culture just wrote the software. which means every time you lean in, eyes closed, you are running a brand new program on a genuinely ancient machine. And that machine, your lips, your nerves, your flooded brain, is where the final piece of the answer is hiding. Start with your lips. They look like two simple flaps of skin. They are one of the most sensitive surfaces on your entire body. Packed into them are thousands of nerve endings, more per square inch than almost anywhere else you have. Your fingertips are famously sensitive. Your lips leave them in the dust. There is a map of your body drawn inside your brain. It's called the somatosensory cortex. But it isn't drawn to scale. Body parts get space based on how much feeling they send, not how big they are. Draw a little human at those true proportions, and you get a monster. Giant hands, giant lips, a tiny, forgettable everything else. So when your lips touch someone else's, your brain isn't getting a signal. It's getting a flood. There's more. Your lips are technically inside-out skin, a mucous membrane normally kept hidden inside the body. That's why they're pink and not the color of the rest of you. You're looking at the inside, worn on the outside. Raw, exposed, and wired to the hilt. The perfect instrument for reading another person by touch. Now watch what happens the instant contact is made. A wave of signals races up the trigeminal nerve, one of the biggest cables running into your brain. It arrives, and your brain does something. It usually saves for food, drugs, and winning. It releases dopamine, the chase chemical, the one that whispers, again. The same reward circuit that lights up for cocaine lights up for this. Your brain files a good kiss under do that again. Then comes the second chemical, oxytocin, the bonding hormone. Dopamine makes you want them. Oxytocin makes you keep them. It's the same molecule flooding a mother holding a newborn. Your body reuses it, no questions asked. Meanwhile, your stress hormone, cortisol, drops. You feel calmer and more electric at the same time. Chemistry, doing two jobs at once. Your heart rate climbs. Your pupils widen. Your blood pressure ticks up. You experience all of this as one single, wordless feeling. Wow. But wow is not a feeling. Wow is a report. Your entire chemistry lab handing you the results. Which raises an uncomfortable question. If a kiss is a test, what's the failing grade? In 2007, an evolutionary psychologist named Gordon Gallup asked exactly that. He surveyed hundreds of people about their first kisses. The results were brutal. 59% of men said a bad first kiss had ended a budding relationship. For women, it was 66%. Not a bad date, not a bad text, a bad kiss. One data point and the whole thing was over. You can like someone's face, their jokes, their whole life, and one kiss overrides all of it. That's not romance being fussy. That's the test doing its job. Everything we just walked through, the scent, the taste, the immune signals, gets collected in that single moment. And your brain runs the math faster than you can think. A single conscious thought. You call the answer chemistry. It literally is. So here is what's actually happening when two people lean in. It looks like the softest, simplest thing humans do. It is one of the most information-dense. A behavior that started as a mother feeding her child, chewed food passed mouth to mouth. Borrowed by grooming primates to say, we're okay, you and me. Rebranded, over thousands of years, into the single most romantic act a person can imagine. None of it was designed for love. Love just moved into a house that survival built. And you inherited the whole thing without a manual. You were never taught to kiss. You were handed a machine millions of years in the making and told, figure it out. So let's go back to where we started. You, standing 4 inches from another person's face. Eyes closed, lips puckered. The most romantic thing a human being can do. Except now, you know what's really about to happen. You're about to trade 80 million bacteria, and prime each other's immune systems. You're about to read scent, taste, and immune compatibility in a single second. You're about to flood your own brain with dopamine and oxytocin and drop your guard on purpose. You're about to run an ancient survival test and call the result love. Nobody taught you how. You just knew. So go ahead, lean in,